son had told me he didn't want me attending his wedding because of his fiance's family, so I did this. Hello, Reddit, this is my first time posting here. I need some help with a personal matter. I'm a 52-year-old single mother to my 25-year-old son. I've raised him alone since my husband passed away from an aneurysm in his sleep while I was pregnant. I've sacrificed a lot for my son, as many single parents can relate. I'm not saying he owes me, but some appreciation would be nice. Recently, he told me he didn't want me at his wedding because his fiancée and her family think I don't look rich enough. That was incredibly hurtful, and I did something out of character because of it. This all started 2 years ago when he began dating Zoe. She comes from a wealthy family. Her parents own a top real estate firm. She always wears luxury brands and owns 3 cars. In comparison, I'm just a college economics professor. I make a decent living, enough to raise my son on my own for the past 25 years. Things changed when he started dating Zoe. I never had a problem with her until recently. After we first met, my son told me I needed to change my house because it embarrassed him. Zoe's parents have a mansion, and he wanted me to make my home look better. We fought because I didn't think anything was wrong with my house. Some of the furniture was chosen by my late husband, and I value it. We patched things up after he apologized, but he stopped bringing Zoe over. I only met her parents once at their engagement party. My son criticized my outfit then, too. I dressed in what I could afford, but he seemed embarrassed I wasn't wearing luxury brands. 3 days ago, he told me that Zoe's parents didn't want me at the wedding. They thought I wouldn't fit in with their wealthy friends. Since they were funding most of it, he wanted to respect their wishes. He said he'd have a private ceremony later for me. I was very hurt and started crying. He said I was being selfish for not caring about his image. I told him to leave and never come back. Later, I did something I'm unsure about. I decided to do something that might not have been right. A couple of weeks ago, I helped my son secure the wedding venue he wanted. He had been struggling because the owner refused to rent it out, despite their offers. Zoe insisted on having the wedding there, and they even sent invitations with that address. When my son mentioned the owner's name, I realized I knew him from college. I decided to reach out and see if I could help. After a few conversations, the owner explained that previous events had left his property damaged, so he was reluctant to rent it out again. I assured him that my son and Zoe's family would respect his property, emphasizing Zoe's parents' reputation in real estate. It took some convincing, but eventually, he agreed to rent it out, with the condition that he wouldn't mention my involvement. My son was thrilled, unaware I was behind it all. However, when he later told me I wasn't invited to the wedding, I was heartbroken. Feeling betrayed, I called the owner, explained everything, and shared my feelings about how my son had treated me. The owner and his wife were sympathetic and decided to back out of the deal, returning the advance payment. Zoe's family was furious and even threatened legal action, but the contract allowed for cancellation up to a week before the event, so they had no legal grounds. Feeling a mix of vindication and sadness, I wrote a letter to my son explaining everything I had done to secure the venue and how deeply his actions had hurt me. Instead of mailing it, I went to his house, left the letter on his doorstep, and blocked his number. Later that night, he came to my house, visibly upset. He apologized, saying he had no idea I was responsible for securing the venue and that he hadn't realized how much he'd hurt me. He begged me to fix the situation because they had already sent out the invitations with that venue's address. I told him that from when he was a child, I had sacrificed a lot for him and only ever expected a bit of appreciation. He made it clear he was ashamed and embarrassed by me because his fiancée and her parents were not on board with it. He said he would speak to Zoe and her parents and get them to apologize, but he needed me to speak to the owner and fix the venue situation. I refused, saying I wouldn't disturb the owner again and they had to figure it out themselves. He got pissed off and called me unreasonable. I told him to leave because I couldn't help him. He warned that if I didn't help, I would lose him forever, accusing me of being vindictive and selfish. Then he left. I've been worried about whether I made the right choice. Aita for refusing to help my son get back his wedding venue. Update 1. It's been a week since I spoke to my son. I haven't reached out to the owner. I was conflicted, but now things are clear. My son is old enough to deal with this on his own. I don't think I could change the owner's mind after what I told them. I spoke to friends and family, explaining the situation. They were surprised they weren't invited and offended when I told them it was because my son was embarrassed by us. They thought my reaction was appropriate. My son hasn't spoken to me since. There are just days to go for the wedding, and it's no longer my problem. If he doesn't want to consider me his family, I'm absolved of my responsibilities. Processing this emotionally is hard because my son was all I had. Update 2. With 2 days until the wedding, Zoe surprisingly reached out to me. I assumed she didn't want me there, so I was cold. But she was trying not to cry and asked for a chance to convince me to fix things. She said she respected and admired me, even though my son forbade her from speaking to me. Zoe said she was disappointed I wouldn't be attending. I snapped, accusing her of being the reason I wasn't invited. She denied it, saying neither she nor her parents had said anything about me not fitting in. She was shocked to learn what my son told me. As we swapped stories, we realized my son had lied to us both. He seemed embarrassed and used Zoe's family as an excuse to not invite me, trying to hide his background. This revelation left me feeling betrayed and hurt. I realized what was going on. My head literally started spinning, so I told Zoe that I would call her back later to discuss this in detail. But for now, I just needed a break. After about half an hour, once I had managed to process this, I called her back and we talked about this some more. I told her everything that happened right from the beginning, how my son had always made it seem like she and her family had a problem with me. But she claimed that she had never said any of those things, and neither had her parents said anything that my son had claimed. She told me that my son had always made it seem like I did not like her family, which is why she had kept her distance from me. Even when he decided not to invite me to the wedding, he had said something else to me, which you guys all know. But he had told Zoe that I was the one who was not interested in attending because I did not approve of her. He had actually told her that he was going no contact with me, so she needed to respect that as well, and that was why she had never bothered to speak to me about it until now. I was incredibly hurt when I learned these things were happening because of my son, not because of his partner. At least when I believed that Zoe and her family were behind all of this, I could forgive my son even if it was just a little bit, because I knew that he was under somebody else's influence. But now, knowing that he was doing all of this on his own, there is just no forgiveness for him in my heart anymore. After speaking to Zoe, both of us were really disappointed, and she told me that she had nothing to say to him anymore. After apologizing to each other for the misunderstandings, we hung up. It has been a couple of hours since then, and I'm just sitting in one spot with no idea what to do. I'm pretty sure that after finding out all of this, she is going to cancel her wedding, and good for her. She actually deserves better, and so do I. But unfortunately, I can't exactly find a better son for myself. This is all I have, and every time I think about how much I have done for him and what he did to me, my heart just starts hurting more and more. I'm pretty sure he's going to reach out to me after this, since he's going to be able to figure out that Zoe and I have had a discussion about all of this, and both of us know the truth now. With nowhere to go, I'm sure he'll come back home. But with what he has done, I think he has lost the right to call my house his home and me his mother. Update 3. After yesterday's post, I've been grieving the loss of my son. Even if he comes back, I won't take him in until I've dealt with this emotionally. As I predicted, he came back home with nowhere to go. I didn't open the door when he rang the bell frantically. I spoke to him through the intercom and told him that this home no longer had a place for him. He looked exhausted, with bags and a splotchy face from crying, but I ignored him. He said Zoe had kicked him out, and that he was sorry for being embarrassed about me and his family. He claimed he had become so engrossed in pretending to fit into Zoe's world that he forgot I wasn't part of that act. He admitted he was selfish and didn't deserve forgiveness. But he wanted a chance from me, his mother, who he hoped would be more forgiving than Zoe. I told him that I might have been more forgiving if he was genuinely sorry, but he was just sorry he was caught. He kept justifying his actions instead of simply apologizing. He offered to pay rent to stay with me, but I knew he was bluffing, given his strained relationships with friends. He snapped at me, calling me heartless, and left. He has the means to live on his own, so this is no longer my problem. Update 4. 2 weeks later, Zoe posted that she and my son had parted ways and asked for privacy. I felt bad but didn't reach out to him. After refusing to let him in that day, he hasn't contacted me, confirming he was only sorry he got caught. Since then, I've turned my back on him. I'm used to being on my own, and though it's not like I'm lonely, my son won't be part of my life anymore. Maybe I'll forgive him one day, but not soon, and I'm fine with that.